Okay, so we have been solving quadratic formulas for the last couple weeks now, or quadratic equations, and we have found out that the easiest way to solve for the zeros and find the vertex is to factor it. So, for example, if you were given y equals x squared plus 3x minus 15, the easiest way to find the zeros and what you're looking for would be to factor it, right? Okay, so you would do an x plus, an x minus. This has got to be the 5. This has got to be the 3. Actually, we're going to make that a 2 to make this work. So your zeros would be negative 5 and positive 3, and then you'd go from there, right? Okay. Then, if factoring isn't an option, we learned that completing the square is our second choice. So, for example, x squared minus 8x plus 5 equals 0. Completing the square would be our choice. So we would do x squared minus 8x plus blank plus 5 equals 0. And then we would take half of that, add it here, and subtract it there, okay? Well, what we're going to talk about today is what you're going to do when neither one of these is an option. Okay, and usually what happens is you'll see that there's a coefficient in front of the x squared term, and that's nothing that we've seen before yet. So if I have 3x squared plus 5x equals 8, and it doesn't look like you want to factor it, and it may not even be factorable. Completing the square does not look fun because we haven't even talked about how to do that with the coefficient yet. So then you are on to your third option, which is called using the quadratic formula. Okay? Understanding where the quadratic formula comes from is a whole separate lesson in and of itself. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to give you what is called the quadratic formula. You may or may not choose to memorize it. At some point you use it enough that you just by default remember it. It's the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And there is a fancy little tune that I will teach you later that you can sing it and helps you memorize it. Okay, so obviously in order to do quadratic formula, we need to recognize what our A, our B, and our C is. And if you remember, in order to do that, you need to have it in standard form. So to get this into standard form, we need to subtract 8 from both sides. So standard form is going to give us 3x squared plus 5x minus 8. And we then can identify our A, our B, and our C. Our A is our x squared coefficient. Our B is our x coefficient, and our C is our constant. Now, the world of algebra is all about substituting values in and solving, and technically you have a formula, even though it's a little crazier than you've probably ever seen, and you have the values for those variables. So you know what's next. We need to plug this in. And this is where you really have to be careful and call upon your algebra background to know that. So the opposite of b, and here's my suggestion when solving any quadratic formula, you should always use, I suggest, just open parentheses. So this is going to be b squared minus 4ac, and then I suggest just going in after you've done that, and whatever b is, put b. So b is 5, which also goes here, because that's the b, times your 4ac, and then times all of that divided by 2 times whatever your a value is, okay? So now we get to it, and we work through this carefully, watching out for negatives. This is the opposite of 5, which is negative 5, plus or minus the square root. 5 squared is 25, and now here's where I want you to be really careful. You have a negative 4 times a positive 3 times a negative 8. So if you do negative 4 times 3, you get negative 12, and 12 times 8 is going to give you 96. So this is a positive that I'm going to put here, because a negative times a negative is a positive. So very important that you know to do that, okay? And then 2 times 3 is pretty easy. So we're getting a little closer, all right? So now what's left next to do is what's under the radical here. So we still have that negative 5 plus or minus the square root of, and I wouldn't skip any steps here. I would literally take that step and just do it one at a time. So this is going to give me 121 when I add it together, which is going to be awesome because it is a perfect square. The square root of 121 is 11. It's not always going to work out that way, but I'm starting you off easy. So now here's what we do, and we've done something similar to this in the past. This plus and minus is kind of already set up to show you that you're still going to take the opposite of 5 and add or subtract 11 from it and divide it by 6. Okay, and we've seen this before when we've maybe done equations like x plus 3 equals positive or negative 7. And remember, from there you set up two equations. You set up an x plus 3 equaling your positive 7, and you set up your x plus 3 equaling your negative 7. So let's do something similar to that. And to first do that, that is going to be a negative 5 plus 11 divided by 6. And then the next problem you're going to do is your negative 5 minus 11 divided by 6. And if you can figure out the answers to these two questions, you will have your zeros. And it would be an awful shame to have done all of that work correctly just to get down here and make a simple mistake. So really watch your work here. So negative 5 plus 11 is 6 divided by that 6. One of your zeros is 1. That worked out nicely. Negative 5 plus negative 11 is negative 16 divided by 6. At that point, you can choose to just reduce it. You could choose to make it a mixed number at that point if you would like. So this is going to be 2 and 2/3. Okay, so that's one of your choices, although you will just see your book will leave the zeros as improper fractions. Okay, so let's do another one to kind of walk you through it again. Okay, let's do this one. So let's say 2x squared plus 7x equals 9. Again, in order to be able to do this problem, you need it in standard form, which it is not as of right now. So let's get it in standard form by subtracting 9 from both sides. Then identify your A, your B, and your C. Your A is 2, your B is 7, your C is negative 9. Okay? So again, at this point, you probably need to just refer. My advice to you is before you work on any practice problems, that you write the quadratic formula at the top of your page to refer to. You do enough of them, at some point you're probably going to memorize it. Okay? So let's do the opposite of whatever your B value is, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC, all of that divided by 2A. Okay, so let's fill in our values. Our B is 7, so we'll put that there. Our A is 2, and our C is negative 9 with another 2 there. And now we get to it. So the opposite of 7 is negative 7, plus or minus the square root of all of this. So we have 49. Negative times negative is a positive. Be very careful to put that there. 8 times 9 is 72. And you're going to divide all that by 4. Okay? The next thing to do is take your 49 and add it to your 72. This is a coincidence here that works out this way. But that also gives us 121 divided by 4. And we're getting down to the point where now we officially take that square root of 121, and that's a negative 7 plus or minus, there's that 11 again. And from there, you create your two fractions, and you're treating that 11 as a positive. Then you're treating that 11 as a negative. And negative 7 plus 11 is going to be 4 divided by 4, which gives you a 1. So very similar problems. And a negative 7 plus a negative 11 is a negative 18 divided by 4. And when you reduce that, you get a negative 9 over 2. And those are your answers, okay? All right, so then let's do one more, just to kind of give you another idea, making sure you're doing it all correctly. 2x squared plus 7x. Did we just do that one? Yeah. So 2a squared plus 3a minus 11. So this one is already set up for you in standard form. So you can just go right ahead and get to your A, B, C. So the opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC. So we are just going to go ahead and we're not writing the formula out this time. So we'll put our B value there, minus 4AC, all divided by 2A. Okay, so let's put in our A is 2, our B is 3, and our C is negative 11. So this is 3 and 3. 2 is A, C is negative 11, and your A is 2 again. And now we start to work through it. The opposite of B, plus or minus 9 plus 8. 2 times 4 times, oh, I thought that was a 1 for a second. So we have 88. And that's divided by 4. Okay, so now this time when we look at 88 plus 9, we start to see when it doesn't always work out perfectly, because when you add that, you get 97, okay? And this is the point where you refer to your calculator. You find the square root of 97, which is a positive or negative 9.85 if you use your calculator, divided by 4. And just because that's a fraction or a decimal doesn't mean that you would do it and solve it any differently than you did the previous two. So you're going to take your 3 plus 9.85 and divide it by 4, and your negative 3 minus your 9.85 and divide it by 4. So this is going to be 9.85 essentially minus 3, which is going to give you your 6.85 divided by 4. And when you take that and divide it by 4, you get 1.71. Then you have 9 plus 3 is negative 12.85 divided by 4, and that's going to give you your 3.21, which is negative. Okay, so quadratic formula is your third choice when it doesn't factor, when you don't want to complete the square in terms of it being a little too sloppy. You remember this formula and you start to plug in the values and you work through that. Okay?